Sir, are you trying to steal this? Every head turned toward the jar of coffee in the assistant manager's hand, then toward the old man standing perfectly still, his knuckles whitening around a shopping basket that held nothing else worth more than a few dollars. Danny Brooks had been in the supermarket less than 10 minutes. A loaf of rye bread, a carton of milk, the jar of coffee. That was all. He moved slow, the left knee stiff from an injury older than most of the shoppers here. His baseball cap, frayed at the brim, bore a unit insignia so small and faded it was nearly invisible. At the register, the young cashier scanned his items in silence. The line behind him shuffled forward. Then came the sharp alien beep, and the cashier's hand froze mid-motion. From across the store, Tyler Briggs, the assistant manager, appeared like a shark scenting blood. 28, cocky, and freshly promoted, Tyler thrived on making an example out of people. He plucked the coffee from the counter, holding it high like it was contraband. "This wasn't on the belt," he announced, voice pitched so half the checkout lanes could hear. "Looks like you tried to slip it into the bag." Danny's eyes lifted slowly, the lines of his face unreadable. "I set it down right there," he said, his voice low but clear. "Sure you did," Tyler smirked. "Oldest trick in the book. Look harmless, play the sympathy card. We see guys like you all the time." There was a faint, cruel ripple of laughter from somewhere in line. A teenager snorted. A middle-aged man by the gum rack smirked like he'd just been proven right about something. Danny didn't answer. His left hand trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the old shrapnel damage that never quite let him be still. Tyler Briggs turned to the cashier. "Call security. I want this handled properly." The kid behind the counter shifted uncomfortably. Maybe it was just—" "No," Tyler cut him off. "Rules are rules. We don't let thieves walk." And just like that, Danny Brooks, who had once walked through machine gun fire to pull men out of burning vehicles, was standing under the fluorescent glare of a grocery store, judged by strangers who knew nothing about him, while a $6 jar of coffee became the measure of his worth. Danny didn't move when the store's lone security guard, a wiry man with a badly fitted uniform, approached from the front entrance. The murmurs around him grew. Some people leaned in for a better look. Others shook their heads, convinced they were witnessing some sad decline of a once decent man. Tyler Briggs stood taller now, as if the presence of security confirmed his judgment. "Sir, I'm going to need you to empty your pockets." Danny's eyes didn't waver. Slowly, he set the basket on the counter, reached into the back pocket of his worn jeans, and pulled out a battered brown wallet. Its leather was creased from decades of use, the stitching frayed. He flipped it open without flourish, revealing a faded military ID and a small, scuffed challenge coin that caught the fluorescent light.
"Nice prop," Tyler scoffed, taking a half step closer. "You know you can buy those online. Whole kits, ID, patches, even medals. Some people really go all in on the act." From the next lane over, a woman paused mid-transaction. Lisa Morgan, mid-30s, had been quietly unloading her groceries when the coin's engraving registered in her mind. A silver falcon over 5 lightning bolts. She froze. That symbol wasn't for public display. She'd seen it only once before, years ago, in a briefing so classified she hadn't been allowed to take her notes out of the room. She took a step toward the commotion, her gaze fixed on the coin. Tyler was still talking, but she barely heard him. "You mind?" Tyler's voice snapped her attention. Lisa met his stare, then nodded toward the coin in Danny's palm. "Where'd you get that?" she asked quietly. Danny's eyes shifted to hers for the briefest moment. "Earned it," he said. The guard glanced between them, uncertain now. Tyler rolled his eyes. Yeah, sure. Probably out of a pawn shop. Meanwhile, in the cramped, paper-strewn back office, the store's accountant was making his usual rounds through the day's incident log when the words Danny Brooks appeared in the banned shoplifters list. His hand froze on the mouse. He knew that name, had stood beside it carved in bronze at the town's war memorial, just under the list of Gulf War service members. The same memorial, he also knew, had been mysteriously funded by an anonymous donor nearly 3 decades ago. He took up the office phone and dialed a number not listed in any store directory. His voice was low, urgent. "We've got a situation. Brooks. Yeah, Daniel Brooks. Here. Right now." Back at the front registers, Lisa's voice cut through Tyler's ongoing lecture. "You should put that coffee back in his bag." Tyler scoffed. "Lady, you don't know what you're talking about." Lisa's tone didn't change. "I know exactly what I'm talking about." She glanced at the security guard, her expression making it clear this wasn't something to be ignored. The guard hesitated, suddenly aware that whatever this was, it might be far above his pay grade. Danny remained still, his expression unreadable. He'd been through worse than this, far worse. But even as the tension simmered around him, the air in the store felt like it was shifting, quietly, invisibly, towards something no one in that checkout line could have guessed. Lisa Morgan didn't argue with Tyler Briggs. She didn't need to. Instead, she stepped backwards, letting the quiet swallow her as she reached for her phone. She walked toward the sliding glass doors, away from the crowd, and hit a number buried deep in her contacts. It rang once. A man answered with no greeting, just, "Go." "Falcon Coin? Brooks. He's here." There was a pause, just a breath, but heavy enough to change the air around her. "Location?" the voice asked. "Oak Street Market, Redford, Oregon." "Stay there." The line went dead. Back in the front of the store, Tyler's voice was still filling the silence. "Sir, until we sort this out, I'm going to have to—" The guard shifted, clearly uncomfortable now. "Maybe we should just—" Tyler cut him off with a glare. "Do your job."
Danny hadn't moved, his weight resting slightly on his good leg, the coffee jar still sitting on the counter between them. His hands were empty now, the wallet and coin back in his pocket, but the way he stood, solid, immovable, made it clear that no amount of embarrassment or accusation was going to make him flinch. In the back office, the accountant's voice was a low, urgent rasp into the phone. "Yeah, Brooks, Daniel Brooks, Gulf, Vietnam. He's here at my store." On the other end of the line, someone much older responded in a voice tight with recognition. "Don't lose sight of him." The accountant swiveled in his chair toward the small, grainy feed from the store's security cameras. Danny was right there at checkout 3, looking exactly as he remembered from the old photographs. Older now, lined by time, but still upright, still carrying that quiet steadiness. Outside, Lisa's call had already set something in motion. Within 12 minutes, a black SUV rolled past the store without stopping, its tinted windows making it impossible to see inside. 2 more followed. They didn't park. They circled the block. 17 minutes after Lisa made the call, the low growl of an engine cut through the parking lot. A black Suburban swung in fast, tires squealing slightly as it braked hard outside the sliding doors. The driver's side doors swung open before the vehicle had even fully settled. Out stepped Major General Thomas Raines. Full dress uniform, rows of service ribbons and medals catching the cold Oregon light. His cap was tucked under his arm, his stride purposeful, his expression unreadable. The automatic doors parted for him as if they knew better than to slow him down. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. A grocery cart clanged into a shelf as someone lost their grip on it. The sound of the store seemed to narrow into the hard click of his polished shoes on the tile floor. Raines didn't scan the aisles, didn't hesitate. His eyes locked on Danny Brooks from the moment he crossed the threshold. Tyler Briggs, oblivious to who was bearing down on him, had just opened his mouth to press the point again when Rains closed the distance. And then, in full view of the stunned shoppers, the Major General of the United States Army stopped in front of the accused shoplifter, came to attention, and snapped the salute so sharp it cut the air. Colonel Daniel Brooks, the man who kept 3 battalions alive in the Karat Valley, and the reason I ever made it home. The store fell silent, utterly. Tyler's smirk drained from his face as though someone had pulled a plug. The cashier's mouth fell open. A mother in the next line whispered something to her teenage son, who stood taller without even knowing why. Danny didn't move at first, didn't return the salute right away. His eyes searched Rains's face for a long moment before his hand came up, slower now than it once was, but steady, to return the gesture.
"Major General," Danny said quietly. Rains turned his head toward Tyler without lowering his voice. "Is this the man you accused of theft?" Tyler stammered. This man," Rains said, cutting him off, "once organized airlifts under enemy fire to bring supplies to soldiers trapped behind hostile lines. One of those supplies," he glanced at the coffee jar, "was this very brand, delivered in care packages he personally helped load under mortar fire." Tyler took a step back. The security guard swallowed hard and looked at the floor. Lisa Morgan had moved closer now, her eyes never leaving the silver falcon and 5 lightning bolts she'd spotted earlier. "Sir," she said softly to Rains, "he still carries the coin." Rains nodded once, as he should. The Major General turned back to Danny. "We've been holding something for you for a long time." He gestured to an aide who had followed him in, a younger officer who now stepped forward carrying a small, velvet-lined case. When Rains opened it, the light caught a medal, engraved with the words, "Service without witness." Rains held it out, his voice softening for the first time. "We should have given you this 28 years ago." Danny looked at it for a long time before taking it. He closed the case gently, his thumb brushing over the latch. "I didn't come here for this," he said finally. "I came to keep a promise to someone who's not here anymore." For a long moment, no one in the store moved. Then Lisa, standing ramrod straight, raised her hand in a sharp salute. 2 older men near the dairy aisle followed suit. Others, veterans, reservists, civilians, straightened their backs, their faces solemn. Even those who didn't understand exactly what was unfolding knew they were witnessing something rare. Tyler Briggs stood frozen, pale, his earlier bravado turned to dust in his throat. Somewhere in the back office, the accountant set down his phone and just watched the feed, a faint, knowing smile pulling at the corners of his mouth. Outside, the other black SUVs had formed a quiet perimeter, their drivers standing at ease, scanning the parking lot without looking inside the store. For Danny Brooks, the noise of the world had dimmed. The metal was heavy in his palm, heavier still with the memories it carried. He slid it into his jacket pocket beside the battered wallet, the challenge coin, and the quiet knowledge that some truths never need to be shouted to be understood. Rains didn't turn toward the exit right away. Instead, he stepped back so his voice could reach everyone within earshot. "This man," he said, gesturing to Danny, "did more for this country and for the men and women who serve than most of us will ever know. And today, he was accused of stealing a jar of coffee. Let me make something clear. That coffee is the same brand we used to send halfway across the world in care packages Danny himself risked his life to deliver." The words landed heavy. Somewhere near the bakery section, a young man removed his baseball cap. A woman in a business suit stopped halfway to the door and turned fully towards them.
Rains looked straight at Tyler Briggs. "If you can't recognize the difference between a thief and a hero, You have no business standing in judgment of anyone." Tyler swallowed, his face ashen, but said nothing. Lisa Morgan's voice rose above the hush. "Veterans, on your feet." The shuffle of movement followed. Two older men near the produce, a woman by the frozen foods, even a teenager in a camo hoodie who probably wasn't old enough to serve yet, but stood taller just the same. Salutes came up, sharp and deliberate. Even the civilians seemed to straighten, as if realizing they'd been part of a silent jury that had gotten everything wrong. Raines accepted the moment, letting the silence stretch before speaking again. "Some people carry their service where it can be seen. Others carry it quietly, in their scars, in their memories, in the weight of what they've done. Colonel Brooks has carried his in silence for decades. That silence ends today." The young aide stepped forward, removing the medal from its case. He pinned it over the left side of Danny's jacket. Danny looked down at it for a moment, then said simply, "I didn't come here for this. I came because I promised someone I'd never let them go without." And with that, he picked up his grocery bag, nodded once to Raines, and turned toward the doors. The salute stayed raised until the glass closed behind him. Danny walked out into the cold morning, the medal tucked deep in his pocket beside the coin and wallet. No cameras followed, no one asked for a speech. A week later, above the supermarket's customer service desk, a new brass plaque appeared. Colonel Daniel Brooks, honor earned in silence. No mention of the coffee, no mention of the confrontation. But in the small Oregon town, everyone knew. And from that day forward, people looked twice before judging a quiet man with worn hands and a faded cap.